Okay, in this lesson, we're going to be appending and adding elements. So first of all, we need to make a selection of the parent. So let's select the parent element, and this is going to be the top div there. And then we're going to be adding additional elements before and after that. So top L, and make our selection using document, and then query selector, and selecting the element with a class of top. And then the child that we want to add in, so that's going to be const, and we'll just call this one div1. And then using the document, we're going to create an element, and the element that we're creating is going to be a div. And then within this div1, let's add in some text content, and I'll just call that div1, and then div1 style, color, and assign a color of red to it so that we can see it when we insert it on the page. So let's save that. And right now it's not going to do a whole lot, so when we refresh, we don't see a whole lot happening. So let's go back into the code, and we'll check out what the difference between append and append child is going to be. So making a selection of the parent, and getting the element, and then using append. So this is going to allow us to append whatever the child is to the page. And let's refresh. So what it's happened now is it's added it on the page. So when we look at the elements, it's added it to the end. So it's simply appended it to the existing content within the element with a class of top. Let's also try the same thing, and we'll do an append child. So it's going to be using the append child, and in this case it's going to work the same way, because append accepts node objects and DOM strings, while append child only accepts node objects. So let's try that one more time, and nothing happens because we can't we're still using that same element, so we haven't moved it or touched it. Let's recreate it, and we'll create a second one. So div, and do div2, and we'll make this one blue, and just append to. So you see that everything works properly. It's just going to add it into the next available spot that is contained within the element with top, so within the parent. So if we try to select the top element and we want to append just a string value, we're able to do that. So if we do hello world, that's going to allow us to append the content directly to there. So it allows us to append node, so string value. But if we do an append child, this isn't going to work. It's going to throw an error because it's just going to be, it only allows for node objects. So this is a DOM string value of hello world. So it's going to throw an error, and when we go into the console, we see that append child on node parameter is not type of node. So that hello world is not a node, and in order to create it, then we have to create a node for that. So there are also a few other differences as well. So with append does not return a value, whereas append child does. So let's create val1 and let val2 assign the values of whatever gets returned. I'm going to comment that one out because that one's just throwing an error, and then we'll console log out whatever val1 and val2 is equal to. So console log, and then val2 will be the second one that we're logging into the output. Let's refresh, and we get undefined. The first value in 20 is undefined because once again the append is not returning back, whereas the append child is going to return back the value of the appended value. So val2 and div2 are going to be essentially equal. So whenever we select div2, and we've got val2, and I'm going to comment out this one because the append doesn't actually return back a value, you're going to see that this is still referencing that same memory location that we were looking at. So you can also add, so append allows you to add multiple times, while append child only allows you to add once. So with append, you're able to add multiple elements on the page. So let's clear out some space, and we've got append. So if we want it to append that value, and we want it to append div1. So what it's going to do is, because we've already created it, it's just going to move those. So let's see what happens here with append. So what it happened here is it changed the order of it. So it took the text and then it did div1 and div2, because it's still, again, referencing that same memory location. And whereas we can't do multiple items, and even if they are the element divs there, we're still not going to be able to append them. So it only allows us to do the one append of that value. So what it does is it adds the first one, but it's going to ignore the rest of them. So if I comment that out, and if I comment that out, and if I comment that out, so that should be the only one that we're referencing for, and I do need to comment out that value. So let's go back in, and it's only going to append the div1, whereas div2 still exists, but using append child, you can't have multiple parameters in there. So you can only have the one, and that's why it's only appending that one. Whereas append allows us to append multiple items on the page. So with JavaScript, there's also Prepend. So we showed you what Append does. So let's create another div, and this is the one that we're going to prepend. So let's give it another color so we can see it on the screen. And I'm going to actually comment out this stuff here and take a look at what we've got now, where we're going to do a prepend. So same as we were doing with the append, we select the parent, and then from the parent we can run the prepend. And there's no prepend child, there's only prepend. And this is the opposite of append, where it allows you to add the elements. So let's do div3, and we'll add that to the end. So what happened here is it added it actually to the beginning. Sorry, so this was in the beginning, where prepend adds it to the beginning and append adds it to the end. So if I have div1, and let's also do a div2 here. So we're prepend div3 and 2, prepended, and actually let me update this to append. So what happened here is that we prepended, first we prepended div3, then we prepended div2, and then we did an append of div1, so that added to the end. And that's where we got the order of 3, 2, 1.